Another space which is very interesting to me is building materials and in general like home improvement, right? Because everywhere you look, India, there's massive urbanization. Real estate is just like booming everywhere, tier 2, tier 3, metros. I mean, there's no space left now, in fact. So one stock that you guys identified was Stylem, and you bought it at 90 and you exited at 2,300. That's a 25x return on your portfolio, right? And this is a company that makes laminates and is into exports as well. I was going through their financials, and the financials look decent. I mean, it's not like a path breaking growth, but like 500 crore was their revenue about in 2021, and today it's at about 1,000 crores, 1,030 crores. Profits also 55 crores in 2021. Today it's 122 crores. So not such a big jump, but the stock has had disproportionate returns.
So this is what microcap investing does, right? I spoke about 20% compounded returns. If you look at Stylem, that's one of the businesses which has delivered those kind of compounding. And then if a re-rating happens, that's where the value discovery happens. So Stylem, when we bought, nobody knew about Stylem. I mean, this was a small Chandigarh-based company doing their own things. It was 100% EOU back then, where they were focused on doing larger width laminates for European and American markets. Now, like in case of Aarti, it was a similar thought process. But a small company based out of Chandigarh, if they can take global competition head on and be relevant in a European and American market, they got to be doing something relevant. We looked at the balance sheet. The balance sheet was debt free. They were cash rich back then. Expanding in their capacities, getting into newer products. So Stylem, even recently, Stylem probably is one of the first company which has launched surface finishes for kitchen platforms, which otherwise remains like an import substitute. And so this is what I was talking about, right? Import substitution. It takes time. It takes time for a domestic brand to build that market and reputation and everything else. But once you prove the concept, then you have a geometrical growth.
So in this building material space, is there still a lot of potential, you think, or is it kind of a bit saturated in
For the
terms of
last
growth?
few years, we've seen a bit of a saturation. Growth has not been coming about, and that's also because it's become very, very
Price conscious.
price conscious, very diversified kind of players and market and options. So while overall we see a lot of construction and a lot of spend being done, but I guess it's getting distributed across many players. So there's not been a single consolidator to really show that kind of a growth.
And I think entry barriers are also low, right?
Entry barriers are low. So, I mean, if you have to get a kitchen done, for example, you'll probably have options running from 3 lakhs to going up to 25 lakhs, right? So that's the kind of dispersion which is there in the market. So there's no one consolidator who can stand up and say that here is what, I'm the largest market share and I can keep growing on that thing. So that's a challenge. But yes, companies like Stylem. Now, again, the other part is, again, I go back on that 20-25% compounding and why we look at the microcap segment, whether it is Stylem or whether it is anybody else. Statistically, about 4,000 companies are listed. And you'll be surprised that just about 2 to 3% of these are businesses which have delivered a 20% compounding over a 10-year period. You bring this down to 7-year, and probably the number will be between 6 to 8%. That's all. So if you're talking of a 4,000 listed company with a 10-year track record, you have only about 6%, which is about 400 companies who can deliver this kind of return growth, right? Now, that's where the crux is. So a smaller company, given their smaller base, 1,000 crore company can potentially give you a 20% compounding over a longer period of time. As against a 50,000 crore top line company, for the sheer size, it will not be able to deliver.
So for coming back to Stylem, you guys have exited, right? The stock?
We have exited again.
Okay. Again, it was the
PG.
Okay.
It's the same PG. So that discipline is extremely important to protect value.
Fair. Okay. So we coming back to some of the sectors, right? You said water is a big sector that you're looking at going forward, where you see a lot of growth. Can you just dive a little deeper into that?
Well, in a country like India, I mean, if you come to think of it from a macro perspective, anything which is required to ensure sustainability and complete dependence, you need water for drinking, right? And globally, it's barely a very small percentage of potable water which is available. So definitely, water has to be one essential requirement. Now, companies which are catering to the water segment or water treatment in any of these kind of segments, they have to do well, essentially. In fact, when we did Shakti, that again was the basic premise that food sufficiency has to be there. For food sufficiency, you need farm productivity to increase. Now, how does anybody increase farm productivity? Irrigation is the biggest thing. Now, unfortunately, farmers used to get diesel, subsidized diesel, as and when the government can provide it. Or wherever you have wired connection, the connection is available, electricity is available at 3 o'clock in the morning, at that wee hours. So farmers would leave the pump on and end up having flood irrigation, which reduces productivity. So the macro thought was that if solar pump can solve that problem and the farmer can see a 25% increase in productivity, that has to be sustainable, right? So likewise, when you talk of water, likewise when you talk of any other segment, that's the way we look at longevity of a particular business segment. When defense exports, for example, defense as a segment.
So wait, before I come to defense, in within water, right? I mean, all of us know those traditional companies, say like a Vietech Vabag, names like that, right? But any list of companies where you think even valuations are reasonable and growth opportunity is large?
We are working on a couple of opportunities. I would refrain from taking names because those are still work in process for us. But there are very interesting opportunities in the segment.
So this, not the names, but at least like the categories, like you spoke about pumps. What else in the water treatment?
It could be equipment suppliers, it could be chemical suppliers because you require a lot of water chemicals in the treatment and otherwise. And those are very, very interesting segments to look at. And again, if you look at it, it's not just the India opportunity for them. I mean, these guys can become global.
But on globally, is it just on the cost front where India wins, or is it really on technology as well?
Now it's both. Now it's both. That's where again I go back to that this breed of entrepreneurs which has moved up the value chain where these people are doing top quality products at a cost competitive prices.
So competing on technology, even with like countries like China.
Yes. In fact, so here's the new thing that is happening in the Indian corporate arena, right? A lot of these companies, even the smaller ones, are going out and buying European and American front ends, which is changing their scope and their addressable market opportunities overnight. So the smaller companies which are going and buying European front ends, which gives them, the required approvals or regulatory, inroads to be able to participate into a lot of these kind of projects.
It's interesting you say that because the narrative is always the other way around, right? That India is not competing with a lot of global players. So just to kind of bust those myths, in from your assessment, which are the sectors where India is competitive, both on a price and a technology front, say with countries like China?
See, again, I would not want to paint the whole industry with the same brush. There are specific business segments. So, for example, let's talk of apparel. Now, apparel, until a few years back, China used to have 50% global market share. Business moved from China to Vietnam, Bangladesh, Indonesia. Today, China is down at about 37-38%. And these Asian countries were the beneficiaries. India did not get as much. Today, thanks to this whole FTAs and everything else, and the quality consciousness that we're talking about, right? There are a lot of Indian companies which are rising up to the occasion and they are gaining market share. They are cost competitive as against the Chinese guys. You talk of technology, we have another company in the portfolio which is in the casting segment. Now, certain category of products that they do, they are probably the only supplier in the world other than Europe and China, right? So, despite all the tariff issues, despite all the raw material issues and everything else, and this is very interesting, at about a 47% capacity utilization, these guys end up working at 29% EBITDA margins. That's
Wow.
unheard of for a
Yeah.
casting company,
For any industry
for
actually,
any industry,
30%.
right?
I haven't heard 30%
But
EBITDA
that's where the
margins.
combination of technology and cost both comes in, where they are extremely cost competitive vis-a-vis the Chinese guys, and right up there in terms of their technology, where they're taking the European guys head on.
So apparel is one space. Any other industries that you're looking at?
Like I said, it's a very ground up thing. I give you another example of castings,
Yeah, castings.
which, I mean, there are many casting companies in India, but extremely rare and few of these kinds who can do this thing.
Wow, interesting. Okay. Defense is a space that we spoke about, we touched upon, but I want to get into that because one sector that you've identified, or one stock rather, is HBL Engineering, right? It's into batteries, into the defense space overall. And I think 20 rupees is when you identified that.
Yes,
And today the stock is what? 800?
800.
Okay, wow. Terrific story there. You held on, you're still holding on to it?
We're still holding on to it.
Okay, for like 7, 8 years now?
About 7 years.
Okay, phenomenal. Was that like, how did you identify that and how did you hold on? Because at some point, even position sizing is something that you need to do if you want to make sizable returns, right? There's no point just identifying a story and,
Absolutely. In fact, there is no point in doing this genre of investing if you're not doing the right position sizing. What's a great point in getting a 40x and having very small amount invested into it? It has to lead to complete financial freedom. That's the way we think. And you're right that the journey is not so easy. So HBL, when we bought at 20 rupees, we knew what the capabilities is. They were working on Kavach. I'm sure you would be familiar with the Kavach implementation. That's an anti-collision device that India is implementing right now. I think just yesterday, the railway minister said that he wants to see railway network working at 250 kilometers per hour. Now, for you to be able to do that, the engines have to talk to each other and auto stop, because otherwise you expect a head on collision all the time. And that's what Kavach is all about. When we were buying into HBL, they were primarily historically they were known as a battery company doing telecom batteries and other industrial batteries. Moving into power electronics, where Kavach was just one of the product, and we knew that they are ready with the product. They were already approved. Commercial orders had not yet started because the competition was not ready. It took us 4 years before we saw the first jump. And that's where the patience get tested. That's where the conviction gets tested. The stock barely moved or was just in the same range between 20 to 50 rupees. So optically, what people saw that there was stagnation. What a lot of people missed out was that during those 4 years, they became completely debt free. They used to have 450 crores of debt back then.
so why did the stock not move for 4 years?
Because optically, what market participants saw was stagnation. They were at about 1100 crore top line and the same top line maintained. What got missed was the capabilities which were getting built, the balance sheet which was getting strengthened, the fact that external environment was not ready. And when they got ready and when the orders came through, in 1 year the stock moved from 50 to 250.
Wow. And then,
And then, of course,
then the journey began.
because we knew that the addressable market opportunity is very large.